Okay, here we go. We're back with another trailer.
Oh boy.
And so, I am not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I have not, or at least I don't really remember the movies that well. I was more of a Harry Potter kid at the time, and I was very much a fan of The Hobbit. And just the Peter Jackson treatment, like, I understand people like it, but it's not something that I particularly enjoyed. I didn't like the way that CGI was being used. I didn't like that, and his whole interpretation of the Lord of the Rings world, I wasn't that into. I was more into the Rankin Bass, darker, more creature-y, puppety. That's kind of what I wanted it to be. So I just kind of skipped over all of it. I don't have very strong associations with the original Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings, but you.
Well, I can't even say that I really it's like I've watched the films obviously, and they're not 100% accurate to the books, but they generally they overall have a feel of the story that's trying to be told. There's obviously a lot of things that you can't really include because otherwise the movies would be significantly longer than they already are.
It's a big book, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, it was it's actually interesting. It was meant to be just one long compendium, and then was split up into other books later due to the behest of the publishers. What I do know is that this new movie coming out, just like a lot of other projects that are not directly Lord of the Rings itself or directly from like The Hobbit, tend to be taking elements from the compendiums, from like the Silmarillion or the appendices or so forth. So there's bad and good in it. The good part of it is, in general, you're not screwing over the story that has been written. So the Tolkien estate had been quite firm in that you're not, there's very, very little you're allowed to change in these kind of presentations because they don't want to have his legacy entirely. But with the appendices, you can take any little thing and then extrapolate on that. Hence, you get the rings of power.
Right.
That doesn't mean it can be all bad. You can have something and you can elaborate and take from a little thread there if you've got talented enough writers, which is its own little interesting.
That's really more the issue.
Yeah. So let's just take a look at this.
We got the brand new cash-in on the Lord of the Rings franchise. Here's the trailer. We're gonna have a peek.
Yeah. Groundbreaking journey.
Back to Middle-earth.
Right. Okay, this doesn't. All right, Middle-earth as through feudal Japan.
Of the War of the Ring, but 200 years before that,
Riders of the Mark, brothers of Rohan,
there was an older tale.
arise!
Anime, which is, to be fair, probably a smart choice to go with if we're cashing in on the demographic.
Yeah, the thing is, if I want to watch Lord of the Rings but anime, then just watch Record of Lodoss War.
Right. They could have just redone Record of Lodoss War, I suppose. But as a man who owns swords, I think we can say that if we want to make money off a certain subset of nerds, anime is probably the right way to go with it.
Old man.
I didn't know you were a man that owns swords.
He's dead. You will pay for this with your life.
Oh, come on! Clearly, the other guy was being the asshole with this.
The boy you knew is gone. Fire!
That guy's given Jacob from Twilight, so
I pledge to fight for my king.
elephant,
So
fat titty redhead.
Fastest rider you have.
you know something I don't like about like a decent amount of modern animes that I've seen, or when they're going to like big budget things,
Believe in.
they try to make the art look really stunning, and then it's running at like 5 frames a second.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're gonna have this really beautiful, but let's give Speed Racer vibes.
Because it's still cheap. it's not made beautiful by the work of the artists in the same way. There's a lot of digital shortcuts.
And part of that is part of that I understand it's trying to give the feel of anime and everything else from like when it was actually drawn out, but unless it was like low budget Speed Racer level, a lot of it was a lot smoother than this. And that gets really jarring. You can tell about like how invested we are in this.
Right, yeah.
This really right
I'm
now.
looking at it, I'm just going like, this is what the anime looks like now, also. This is very default anime to me. It's not particularly, like, interesting looking, and maybe this is like a there's so many fantasy isekais now that were based off Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, that I don't really get anything interesting from the art style or anything like that. And I don't care. Like I said, I love the Rankin Bass Hobbit, and I've already given up on that, so just make it more default. Who cares?
But it's... Is that I do want to make it clear I'm not necessarily going to just try to just entirely shit over this or say the writing, although there's obviously a lot of girl boss stuff you get from the feel in here, because this at least according to what little bit of research or whatever I was doing, it does come from the appendices, and it is telling a story, but the redheaded daughter here is not even named in the appendices.
She's just
And
their daughter. We found a woman, and we're gonna make a story about her.
So, you know nothing of war.
That's the dad's going, you know nothing of war, and she's like, but I do know something about this. Flips hair, gets on a horse, that kind of thing.
Maybe it won't quite be that level, but it's. I'm not even entirely opposed to having woman come in and showing she can do the work, provided it's like she's coming in to do the work.
If you're gonna get a character arc and not just suddenly be good at everything.
Yeah, like the. It's a bit of a silly game, but there was a game that came out ages ago called No One Lives Forever, and it's about a aspiring secret agent named Kate Archer, if I'm thinking right. I've been dropped on my head a lot, so that I
You
maybe
mentioned
misremembered.
like aspiring to kind of a bimbo.
Well, no, she's not a bimbo. She looks attractive. And everything. She's not a bimbo. She's very much anti-bimbo. Mm-hmm. She literally says that she doesn't want to be coddled. She wants to prove that she can be there. So by a series of circumstances, she gets put on a mission, and things go sideways or whatever, and goes into a deeper plot. But you're going through the game playing as her. And wasn't exactly the easiest game in existence either. You have to do things. You have to build up. You have to learn from your failures. There is a lot of comedy and other stuff in it. It takes some interest, although the one of the protagonists in the series looks like a Sean Connery stand-in. It gives more of like Roger Moore type vibes.
Right, it's James Bond type game.
But point being is, I'm not opposed to having a female protagonist that goes in and is like, I don't want to be treated like this. I don't want to get here just because of the way it looks. I want to prove that I belong.
Yeah, you get a character arc out of that.
And I even talk in Witcher 3, when you go to Skellige. Skellige is basically, Sapkowski's version of the Nordic countries with a bit of Scotland thrown in. Without giving away details for anything for people that still want to play the game, and yes, I know it's like 10 years old or whatever the hell at this point, but you go there. The king of the area has been sent aloft to have his body burned because he's dead. And there's talk of who's going to be the new king, and then virtually all of the possible heirs for the new ruler get murdered in a way I'm not going to spoil. And one of the ways you can go through this mystery and help plot things, one of the side pieces that's maybe not side pieces, isn't really the right word. You don't sleep with her as Geralt. But one of the people that you can help is a daughter. And she's kind of the same thing. It's like she knows she's not quite as strong as the men or whatever, but she is smart, and she wants to She wants to figure things out or whatever and prove that her name belongs there. Like, she doesn't want things handed to her. I'm perfectly good with people wanting to earn things. And so maybe they'll have this in the maybe they'll have this in the movie if they
Maybe they'll
write
make
it that
an
way.
actual character out of this unnamed person in the appendices. Now, what is your prediction, however? Because I have one.
You know what? Why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, my prediction is going to be that she will beat enough people in swordsmanship and combat and stuff to be surprising. But at the end of the day, she's going to save the day by doing a job that only a woman could, which is she's going to seduce. she's going to seduce Jacob Black over here. That's it. That's how it's going to be. Because it starts off with him being like, they get into this whole conflict because he wants to marry her in the beginning. Blue, 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 blue. And he's like, I'm not going to let you marry my daughter because I want my children to stay beautiful and Aryan. And he's like, well.
So,
and then at the end, she's going to be like, you've seen how strong I am and let's stop this war. And they're going to get married. And then that's going to be it. She's going to...
So you think she's going to beat him into submission and then he's going to be in the sub role, or what are you thinking?
No. She's going to prove her right by combat and everything else, and she's going to be great, and he's going to realize that, I should have recognized her power as a woman and as a combatant. Let's actually end the war. I'm going to get over the fact that my dad got killed by your dad, and then we can unite the kingdoms together. He gets over himself.
Okay.
And once that happens, then she goes back to being, like, cute and small or whatever.
Okay.
So it might be more like...
The only thing I can really predict on this is it's going to be underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I said the art style, the way things are drawn in and of themselves look fine. The motion and the animation or whatever. Like, I'm not expecting like 60 frames a second or anything like that. But make it at least make it look like it's 24 frames a second.
It does look really cheap.
Not 12. I hate that. It irks me. It's like, how are you somehow making this look worse than the original Vampire Hunter D?
That's the thing. These old crappy anime was at least hand drawn. It was at least like lush and everything. This looks very digital all the way through.
Yeah, and it's going to be. But anyway, I did have at least some interest in this as far as like, okay, what were they sourcing from? And I said it's sourced from a very, 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 very small part of the appendices. And there have been multiple writers on this screenplay. They're originally the writing team who was behind Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance.
Another fantasy franchise that I have no interest in that adaptation.
So
real wordy.
Was Jeffrey Aldis and Will Matthews, and they wrote the original story. But it's supposed, at least according to the OneRing.net and also a Nerd of the Rings interview, it's been retooled, and there have been 2 new credited screenwriting people, a Phoebe Gittins and Arty Papageorgiou, if I'm saying that right. I think it's a Greek name.
Papageorgiou.
Yeah, it sounds
Giorgio from the Daft Punk song, so I'm gonna go with that's how you say it.
Okay. So I was curious, okay, well, who are these people and what have they worked on anything else? And so I went on a little bit of a journey, and maybe it would have been a lot faster had I been a bit more than a minute. But
yeah, it took us a while of research to find like what other movie have they done? Are they,
Well, the thing is, there is a movie they worked on. In fact, they wrote and directed, according to the IMDb page and other things that I've tried to find, called The Sorrows.
And that's it. That's the only thing, right?
Well, that's the only thing, but what's more interesting beyond that being the only thing, this writing thing from like over a decade ago, is all I can find from it are like 1 or 2 promotional stills. In fact, the 2 stills basically are the same still, just at a slightly different frame setup. And The Sorrows, and a very small description, and that's it. I can't find any trailers for it. There used to be one apparently from another site that was like a fan of some other person supposedly in this
Yeah, a
project.
fan of the main actress made a...
Or one of the main actresses in it. And even an article she wrote back in like December 2014, she had a link to a trailer which has since been privated, and those promotional stills, and that's it. It's like there's nothing else.
It appeared to be just a movie that doesn't exist, which is weird for people who are now helming a big Lord of the Rings franchise film.
You know, it's just very interesting to me that this is now being written by two people who effectively, like, looking through like their IMDb credits, they have like some stand-in, non-speaking roles and a couple of things when they were younger.
Yeah, a couple acting roles.
Yeah, well, basically like an extra type role or something uncredited or whatever listed, which who knows. And then this one movie, which I looked through multiple sites, it's not available on any legitimate streaming services. I have not found it on any illegitimate streaming services, and even trying to look at a few, and it just doesn't exist.
As far as we can tell, it doesn't.
And so, if anybody out there, if you've ever seen The Sorrows from not Sorrow, not The Sorrow, not the sorrow of some whatever the hell spaghetti western looking thing or whatever, because there was multiple things around this time, so I could even understand why the title of the movie might have been changed, but usually they have like a link or some other kind of reference at something else about this. But if anybody's seen this, please send a link or something, because at first I was starting to think that these were like Alan Smithy level credits.
That's what it seemed like.
Like this is something that shouldn't exist at all, or really doesn't exist, and it's a big lark. But no, these people, Phoebe and Artie, apparently do exist, because they do have an interview on Nerd of the Rings. Now, they are not the main person being interviewed. That's the producer, Philippa Boyens, who has been tied to Lord of the Rings for a while, obviously. I say obviously.
Philippa Boyens has credits in all of the other Lord of the Rings projects, practically. That's her thing.
And the Hobbit movies and so forth. And Phoebe and Artie sit there and talk, and it's only after doing like a little bit of additional digging.
We were trying to find the movie initially. We were trying to find The Sorrows.
Because I just honestly wanted to know what these other people wrote. Just to honestly look at, not specifically to take a shit on it, just to look at it. And through this and seeing it briefly mentioned on the Wikipedia page and a few other things through looking through, apparently Phoebe Gittins is Philippa Boyens' daughter.
Yeah.
Which,
so,
okay, that's
the Nepo baby of the rings, I guess. So what's curious now to me is the possibility that Artie and Phoebe, the writers, credited screenwriters for this series, one, might not have done anything for it. There's a bunch of other screenwriters that might have done zero for this actual script. And not only that, they might have been given a fake movie so that they have more than one credit.
I don't know. Is that the reason I'm not willing to at least entirely think that it's a fake movie? Like, it could be. It could have been something that they were given long ago.
Yeah.
It's because I said, one of the articles that we found, we'll pop it up here. Mm-hmm. So the people at home who have fallen asleep can not look at it. But one of the articles showed somebody referencing this in December 2014. And that's the page that had a link to the trailer, which has now been privated. Mm-hmm. And just those kind of steals. So it's almost more like maybe this thing was put out and some people went and yeeted it from the internet ether, either because it's so bad or because I don't know why. This is bugging me out of my
Yeah,
mind.
I mean, it was 10 years ago, so it's possible whatever it was initially hosted on is gone if there was a trailer. But
Yeah, but I mean, like the IMDb page doesn't have it. YouTube doesn't have a trailer for it. It's like it. I didn't see it on Vimeo or some of the other alternate streaming platforms. So maybe I have to go look a little bit more in hunting. But it's about to give me an aneurysm. This is this is.
I'm very curious, extremely cynically, to find out if this movie, one, if it actually exists, two, if it does exist, were Phoebe and Artie, the fresh new faces of Lord of the Rings, even involved with it at all, or were they added onto it post hoc? And then after that, how easy is it to give somebody fake movie credits in order to give them a legitimate career? Which, to be fair, they have a legitimate career because of who Phoebe's mom is. But still, it's an interesting idea of, like, can you just do that? Can you just add your... If you find a movie that's not a lot about an IMDb, can you just add your credit in there and, you know, run with it? Maybe.
Apparently so.
That's the thing. If we actually find, who knows, maybe The Sorrow is a great movie. And we will
Not
be
the
proven
Sorrow.
wrong. Right, the
Sorrows.
Yes.
Very, very, very specific because there's a horror movie or whatever called Sorrow, and there's the Sorrow of blah blah blah, another kind of shite or whatever from that time.
Yeah.
So it's just very, very buffoon.
Well, depending on what we find out, if I suddenly turn out to be an award-winning filmmaker in about 6 months with like 8 movies under my name that all came out about 10 to 20 years ago, you'll know what happened, because I will absolutely use that.
Or will they? Well, will they? Will they know? Or will this video just simply be yeeted into existence?
That's true.
Maybe somebody will just come in and like just snag things at the last